Greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Coming at you about today with the administration is not a branch of government. And what we're going to talk about today is all of the contracting that's going on in regards to identifications, registrations, applications, all those kind of things. Because each and every one of them, where you sign a document, what you're actually doing is you're signing a form of a contract. Now, whether it's the initial contract or which would be like enumeration at birth under a spell of illness, we're going to talk about this stuff. So let's check. StreamYard link is down there. If anybody wants to come join the stream and discuss it in your points of view and stuff, it's an open panel. There's a PayPal link that's pinned, so anybody that wants to share some love, please feel free to do so. Working towards getting a new pair of glasses and various other things, and one of which is my laptop here. It's losing keys, and I'm having to do a lot of copy pasting of single letters. So anybody that can help with sharing some love through the PayPal is greatly appreciated. But we also want to remember to share those, hit those link, hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons to get this information out there. I think it's pertinent, and I think that's going to be the most help to everybody else. So the return exchange, of course, will be the PayPal button. Always appreciated. And let's get into it. We're going to start out. Get it up here. And what we've got here is the live stream that we're on right now. And it's the details section down below to help remind me of what I want to go over. And it says, of course, the title, the administration is not a branch of government. The branches of government at both the federal and state levels are your executive, legislative, and judicial branches. Now, those are the governments or the government activities. And there is no administrative branch, as the administration is done by contracts through the government contracting. Now, that government contract, even though the states have their own executive, legislative, and judicial branch, everything at the state and federal level is done through administration by the local municipalities. And they're the ones that hold the contracts, while the county, state, and federal governments hold the statutes and commissions, military commissions. Now, that all starts with the enumeration at birth that I mentioned earlier, which is the spell of illness at the hospital. Now, this is defined in 42 USC 1395X. And I'll remind everybody that Title 14 expired. If they're saying Title 14 expired, then there is no more social contract. Pay attention, folks. Now we're going to talk about the RICO, Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations. So it's Racketeer Influenced Organizations and Corrupt Organizations Act. And what I'm getting at here is that if you're not an organization, then you've somehow been duped into acting as an organization by the contracts that you're signing. That's in those contracts, whether it be, again, like I said, the registration, titling, licensing, insurance, all of that stuff. Anytime you sign something, including all court documents, those are all contracts. And if you're not qualified as an organization with a board of directors that can hire an attorney, then you're not qualified to be signing those contracts. And this is the racketeer influence. It's reaching beyond the administration now, or has been for quite some time. I spoke earlier on another platform about the New Deal. And the New Deal is just a infrastructure influence to get the people under the influence of fiat currency, a wealth system, to help create or help build the infrastructure of the nation that needed to be rebuilt at that time. And what we're seeing now with the influx of the people from the southern border and northern border, evidently, is an influx of migrants, immigrations. This is just a new labor force for a New Deal. That's all it is. Everything's coming full stop, and now we've got to start all over again, just like they did in 1933. And of course, it was all promulgated because of the realization of the Roaring Twenties. See, that was the Prohibition era. And what happened there, that was an education for the government people. The people that were running the government realized that the mob does such a better job by influence that the government started learning those same tactics. And so now they're doing it through the New Deal, influencing the people that they have to have this stuff in order to get money. And that's wrong. Contracts themselves are consistent of money. Now, the first thing about the spell of illness that I want to tell people is, and I've said it many times, those doctors take a Hippocratic Oath to Apollo and the Greek gods. While these administrative courts, like I said, they're by contract. So they're not technically required to take an oath. So there is really no oath. And if they do take an oath, even at the federal and state branches of government, executive, legislative, and judicial branches, then they're still violating the supreme law. Now, the supreme law is the scriptures. That's what brings equity. But in common law, where everything is written down through a contract form, again, it's still a contract form. It's a matter of coming to an agreement. Whereas that presents that there was a controversy in the beginning. And that's not the way it is. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was God. So when we look at that, the doctors taking an oath to Apollo and the Greek gods is a influence right from the start. And that influence is influencing you into a form of contracting through emotions. Apollo and the Greek gods represent the emotions, whereas the Christian scriptures correlate God as love. And most people think that's an emotion, but love is truly the action. Owe no man anything but to love one another, for that is the fulfillment of the law, and actions speak louder than words. These are the good works. Faith is dead without the works. So in essence, the love is the spiritual comprehension and manifestation of peace. So no controversy to begin with. Now the supreme law that we're speaking about there, those scriptures, through their constitution, made it the common law of the land. Now, in the United, as it relates to the United States has no real sovereign powers. And under the administration of the military laws, the martial law, they're talking about belligerents, which are at war. And the belligerents are entities of sovereign states. And if you're in a sovereign state of being, then that sovereign power is peace. Whereas the force of this martial law is different. It's a lesser force. And yet people succumb to that lesser force through the contracts. And that's how they're overpowering you. Because you don't realize the greater power, which is force majeure. Force majeure is a greater power. So when they talk about policies and policy enforcement and police force, that's a lesser force because they're using an administrative contract system, which is the bottom jurisdiction, the lowest jurisdiction there is. But again, it emanates from the force majeure, which is the greater power, which is the word. In the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and the word was God. And if God is love, then you have to bring love. Now, when we're talking about the belligerents, we're talking about standing armies and the standing army clause of the Constitution. Now, that Constitution has appropriations for the standing armies for the national defense, which is in the preamble of the Constitution, as well as the general welfare and domestic tranquility. But it all relates to the common defense. And again, that common defense is at the lowest level, the municipality, where everybody seems to have the most thing in common, as they're associated more directly, rather than the federal government that seems to be up there, that seems to be out of reach. The state government that seems to be out of reach. No, the true reach is reaching down and pulling their asses up out of that filth that they're in and teaching them the lesson. And again, the benefit is knowledge and the lesson is knowledge. Feed a man for a day if you give him a fish. Feed him for a lifetime if you teach him to fish. But the true principle, the true power in it, is that you teach him how to teach others to fish for themselves. Jack's got a program coming on tonight talking about learning how to think for yourself, and I think it's a great title. You need to quit. You need to learn the tongue so you can let no tongue rise up against you in judgment. It says, no tongue shall prosper against you, because you're one of his children, not one of the administrative children under a spell of illness. So again, the United States government is the judicial activities undertaken by the government of the United States, known as the federal government. Now, the federal government, as defined, is different than the United States. United States under 28 U.S.C. 3002 is defined as a corporate entity, including departments and agencies. And federal government itself, defined under 5 CFR 575.102, says the federal government means all entities of the government of the United States. So the administration of the United States. So under the administration of the United States, when you go to that hospital, that is a chartered hospital as an organized entity of a sovereign state, and you're born in a spell of illness. That's when it happens. Enumeration at birth. So let's get on to the next one. We're going to talk about the standing armies first. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 12. It's something that we don't really talk about in lawful living so much, but I think I'm going to introduce it over there in our discussions, because this seems to be where they think they have their power, is through their force. And before we get on to it, I've got this nice book. Let me get back here. I've got this nice book called Power versus Force. Nice little book, Hidden Determinations of Human Behavior. And I want to read a little excerpt from it first. Social power and the human spirit. When we cheer the spirit of the true athlete, what we applaud is the demonstration of all the significance of the word spirit entails for us. Courage, tenacity, commitment, alignment with principle, demonstration of excellence, honor, respect, and humility. To inspire implies filling with spirit. Dispirited means dejected, hopeless, defeated. But what exactly does the term spirit signify? The collective totality of human experience. Remember, I tell you, actions speak louder than words, and you really can't comprehend a lot until you get the experiences. So as a skateboarder, you can comprehend a lot more about skateboarding than I could. Just the nature of things. It's experience. The collective totality of human experience can be comprehended by spirit in phrases such as team spirit, or when we exhort people to get in the spirit. And that spirit is a highly pragmatic factor which can determine the difference between victory and defeat. So the more in spirit that you are, the more inspired you are, the more you will do. Actions speak louder than words. It is well known by military commanders, coaches, and CEOs. You know, those people that you think are hard to reach, when all you got to do is bring them up from the bottom, because that's where they actually sit. Those are titles. Okay. Employees or other group members who do not enter into the spirit of the group enterprise soon find themselves without a job or group. So people like myself that don't find the spirit of the application to be true and correct can't complete the application. So unless the other party is willing to help that completion by correction, then it can't be done. This is bringing equity. If you want equity in the end, you have to bring it first, not somewhere in the middle of the contract. From all of the above, it is clear that the term spirit refers to an unseen essence, and that although its expression varies from one situation to another, see, it's the unknown essence, it's the spiritual intent that is then expressed through the actions, not the words. You can try to express them through the words, and you can follow those words the best you can come out with the best effect. But just doing the actions themselves, the way I interpret it, is the best effect, because then you're truly going to learn more about the action than the words that express the action. Again, a delineation of the true essence or the true principle versus, or the true power versus force. The essence itself never changes. Never changes. So this is the internal struggle that we have when we get involved with this administrative system, because when you're born into that spell of illness, they're changing the essence of the person by making a presentation of a person first before you get a chance to. So then you attach yourself to that person. That's somebody else's essence. It came from somewhere else. It came from someone else's thoughts. So you truly have to start thinking for yourself. So again, Jack, tonight, I hope to join you and promulgate that as well. We have to get over this thing about letting everybody else think for us and do the thinking by the writing and then us reading it. That isn't how we're supposed to think. So let's get back to it. The Congress shall have power, and it says, to raise and support armies. Now this ... you see me use that all the time. That means there's something else that's said that is not there. Okay, that's all that is. It's saying it continues on. And so if you go back and read the actual Article 1, Section 8, Clause 2, this is just a short summary made by somebody. You can see it's got a couple notations down here. Attorney General, 1948. Prompted by the fear, let's finish this, to raise and support armies, but no appropriation of money to that use shall be for a longer term than 2 years. Contract terms, which are also money, as I said earlier, that paperwork, that's money. Okay, that's defined as money. It has value, an intrinsic value. You put that value into it with your signature, no matter what the stated value is yet. Even if there isn't a stated value, or if it references a different thing that has a value stated in it. It can reference something that references something that references something that references something that keeps on referencing. And so when we do that and we see the reference goes all the way to the back, to the beginning. In beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. So now you learn that you have to start bringing God into it in order for it. That's that equity. You know, if you want God to have the effect, praise God for all the glory, give all glory to him so he can do his job, then you let him do his job. Prompted by the fear of standing armies, to which Joseph's story alluded, the framers inserted the limitation that no appropriation of money to that use shall be for a longer term than 2 years. Today's contract terms are 1 year. Every year you have to fill out a new contract. Every year you're doing an evaluation and you sign an evaluation document. They make you think that evaluation document is so that you can step up in that employment situation. You're getting experience, and you've got the superiority because you've been doing it longer than the guy that just started 6 months ago. It's a matter of time, just like Jack spoke. So it says in 1904, the question arose whether this provision would be violated if the government contracted to pay a royalty for use of a patent in constructing guns and other equipment. Equipment being agricultural sources that they resource. That's 7 USC 136, where an animal includes man. You are just a piece of equipment, an agricultural equipment. And they will one day put a gun in your hand. God didn't put that gun in your hand. That gun didn't fire itself. And other equipment where the payments are likely to continue for more than 2 years. Solicitor General Henry Hoyt ruled that such a contract would be lawful. Such a contract would be lawful. One man, Solicitor General Henry Hoyt, ruled that such a contract would be lawful. I beg to differ. That goes against the supreme law, which is now noticed as Public Law 27-280 and known as the law of the land, where in the scriptures of the 1611 version of the King James Version of the Bible are known as the law of the land. And again, the only nation that had no sovereign powers, United States, incorporated that into Public Law 97-280 in 1984. It wasn't until 1984 that somebody finally stood up and recognized the scriptures as the law of the land, whereas that's where they derived from. That patent they're talking about, that's the creation of the person. When they start administrating that person, that's the prenatal record. When mom goes to the doctor and says, hey, I think I'm pregnant. Okay, well, let's check. That's the formation of the person. Is at the same time mom recognizes that she might be pregnant. That isn't the original conception. Just like the birth date isn't the original born day, the prenatal record isn't the original conception. That's private. That's known between husband and wife, mom and dad. How come that isn't memorialized? That's the memorialization, the inspiration, where they were inspired in the spirit to co-create together as two beings that he created, and not for some piece of paperwork. They didn't have a contract that said, okay, now you can go lay each other. Laymen. So let's get on to the next one. The next one is that judicial branch that we're talking about, executive, legislative, and judicial. The judicial branch is that money part. It's all the paperwork. It's all the documents that have the value stated in them. The sovereign state, where that value is not sovereign, but rather delineated in a martial term, placed in a different order. Martial, to place in order, a military term. And it says the judicial officer department. Again, that's that corporate entity, United States, under 28 USC 3002, subpart 15, A, B, and C. And it tells us about the corporate entity, the departments, and the agencies. The departments are the executive parts of the government. The departments belong to the executive part of the departments or government. And that judicial officer department of the federal government, whereas the agencies are of the state, is a neutral independent forum within the United States Postal Service. Remember, federal government means all entities of the government of the United States, including the United States Postal Service and the Postal Regulatory Commission. There's that commission again, the military part, the admiralty over the maritime. The United States Postal Service is the registered agent for the maritime contracts under the United States, wherein there is a government created called the federal government, which includes all entities. Those entities were enumerated at birth. And it's an independent forum within the United States Postal Service comprised of the judicial officer, the Office of Administrative Law Judges, and the Postal Service Board of Contract Appeals. So when we're dealing with the administrative law judges, we are dealing with the Postal Service Board of Contract Appeals and the judicial office. And it's being done through an administrative contract. If we're not part of that administrative contract in reality, then the process is not what is due. The process that is due is the sovereign process of power versus force. Everything they do is done under enforcement. Everything we do is done under force majeure. If you catch that concept. So let's look on to the next one. I'm going to check and see. We've got Timmy up here. Greetings, Timmy. Sorry it took me so long to get through that and get back to you.
Hey, brother, no worries.
I'm going to drop the StreamYard link again, just in case. I haven't checked with chat here lately. So we'll do that real quick here. Let me drop this link for anybody else. So first I want to say thanks to everybody. Derek, Out of This World, Joe Moore, Nubs, Moon Peach, Miranda 26, Damsel Medic, our singer. Greetings, everybody. Timmy, of course, greetings. What's on your mind so far? Tell us what you're thinking.
Hey, man. No, this is good. I mean, honestly, every 10 minutes or so, hearing anything you say, I pick up something new, and it's just great. So it's more of a broad understanding, but I appreciate it, man.
Yes, and real quick, red number 40, Rob Cleveland, True North, greetings. I'd like to take a second to remind everybody, hit that like, share, and subscribe, and please hit that PayPal button. Help me out with a new pair of glasses and a laptop repair if you could. All is appreciated, and let's get back into it. We're going to 39 CFR. Make sure we're on the right one. Okay. 39 CFR, which is the United States Code. So it's a U.S. corporate code. And in that corporate code at 39 CFR, which is the regulation, not the codification, 954.15, judicial officer. The judicial officer is authorized to act as presiding officer at hearings and to render a final postal service decision for the Postmaster General. So when we go into these administrative courts, our true question should be to the Postmaster General, as I've been saying. Office of Inspector General, Postal Service decision, Postal Board of Contract Appeals. Can you tell me, am I actually a named party of interest in these contracts? Because if I'm not, I must hand that interest over to the United States to qualify the Trading with the Enemy Act and the identification record that is errored. I'm not a belligerent. I am not a belligerent. I'm not a resident, and no one needs to preside over my reciting. I never actually recited. I've always maintained the same spirit. Always. On appeal from an initial decision of an administrative law judge. That's where I'm telling you that initial contract, when you go into court, they're constructing a new contract under a constructive trust. It's constructive contract fraud and executor des en tort. Okay? The judicial officer will consider the entire record, including the initial decision and the exceptions to that decision. So if he doesn't do that and doesn't comprehend that you're not part of the administration, you never took an oath of office, you never violated the oath of God in your spirit, then that's on him. Because he's the one that also, after taking an oath under God through the administration system of agency and department to the United States government, he's the one that is misled, not me. I know full well that record is aired because I entered those records. I'm the one that entered those data elements. My mom as well. Her mom as well. Her mom as well. It goes back to the beginning of all things. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was God. And when you go to that hospital, moms, and you register at that front desk, you're registering for a spell of illness. Inpatient hospital services. And they've done already created that person when you went to the doctor to determine whether you were pregnant. Pre-nant. So let's go on to the next one. And this is 31, U.S. Code 3123. This is Title 31, of course, is Money and Finance, the financial management of money, general assistance administration, miscellaneous. You are the miscellaneous residents, volunteering as residents when that resident presence is supposed to be deemed necessary. So it's impossible for you to actually be a resident if there was no resident determination made. Okay. So let's go back to the payment of obligations and interest on the public debt. So the obligation is 18 USC 8, obligations and other securities. All contracts are supposed to be secured by the United States, but they never make it there. I can't say never. I'll say many. Let's say many, because I don't know an exact number, but I'm going to say that most of them don't make it there. They remain at the state level with state accusations that you're under their administration and that what they say goes. And the United States government says, okay, as long as you're following the law. And by their record, they are. So until you bring it up, there won't be any correction. And that correction is putting the interest in the United States name under 50 USC 4305B2. It says here, the faith of the United States government is pledged to pay in legal tender. In legal tender, UCC 3-402, the authorized representative giving an unambiguous signature on the instrument is therefore not liable for the person named in the instrument in the legal tender. Legal tender today known as negotiable instruments, which means all contracts. That registration at the hospital is a negotiable instrument to this day as the initial contract of myself as a person in, on, and for that record. That was initiated at the prenatal record when mom went to the doctor who took a Hippocratic Oath and pled to her emotions that she needed help giving birth through that doctor. It's a natural thing. Quit giving birth at hospitals. Legal tender, principal and interest on the obligation of the government issued under this chapter. Government issues are non-taxable, and yet they turn around under the administration because you are a contract agent now dealing with another contract agent. Now it's not a government instrument. It's contract versus contract. It's a battle of the forms. Now you've entered into controversy, the battle of the forms, UCC. And you're issuing them, not them. You're putting your terms and conditions on their applications and stuff and then issuing it back to them. They gave you a blank and you filled them in. Think about this. 50 USC 4305, as it relates to suspension of provisions relating to the ally of enemy, regulation of transactions, not transfers, in foreign exchange of gold or silver, property transfers, vested interest, enforcement, and penalties. And real quick, before we go to that, I want to tell you about 26 USC 1031. And again, like I said, a lot of these codes will tell you by the title. 26 US Code 1031, exchange of real property held for productive use or investment. Pro meaning future, duct meaning course, route, like an air duct. It has a routing, routes, postal routes, use or investment. We go down to H at the bottom. Very simply said, H, special rules for foreign real property. Real property located in the United States and real property located outside the United States are not property of like kind. So if the United States truly has a vested interest in the state documents, then you have to hand those state documents over to the United States to make them like kind. Otherwise, the state will hold them in their possession, and they are the holding agent who is liable for what's in that record. Now watch this. If we go back, if we go back to the Trading with the Enemies Act, as it relates to suspension of provisions relating to ally of enemy, regulation of transactions, the state is regulating the transactions at the state level, and they're considering them transfers of property. A transaction is merely the paperwork. The transfer of property is the physical movement of this laptop or the physical movement of my property. It's not the transaction known as the paperwork denoting possible movements in the future. And if we go down to B2, it says any payment, conveyance, transfer, assignment, or delivery of property. What happened to the transaction? What happened to the transaction? That's all administration. It's not a part of the executive, legislative, or judicial. So you have to bring it in at the judicial level, the Postal Service, and create a contract with them, a private contract under legislation, so that now you become the executor. So you have to come out of the administration by making your own judicial determination and present it in legislation for your own execution. Any payment, conveyance, transfer, assignment, or delivery of property or interest therein made to or for the account of the United States, since I have a vested interest in every document that was ever created with that name, including the prenatal record of my mom, wherein definitions and descriptions were made before the name was created that are part of the characters of that name, had to be disqualified as well, or as otherwise directed. die, as in dual. So it's the coming together in legislation through a judicial determination that you help them agree with, so that then you can administrate as the executive. Pursuant to this subdivision or any rule, regulation, instruction, or direction issued hereunder. Instruction, is that public education? Do they instruct our children there? Yes. So even your educational records, your military records, your hospital records, your health records, all of them, insurance records, registration records of automobiles and children, you register those children into school, so that's your record too. Your education record where you were registered in school by your mom and dad, that's your record too. Okay? You have a vested interest in there. Or direction issued hereunder shall, to the extent thereof, be a full acquittance and discharge for all purposes of the obligation of the person making the same. So me, in my person, Keith Orland Little, I am making it for full acquittance and discharge for me and the state. And we're doing it through the Judicial Office of the United States Postal Service, Postal Regulatory Commission, Postal Board of Contract Appeals, appealing the administrative law judges' court decisions. All of them. All 94 of them at this point, because they were never entered into the United States, including the enumeration at birth is an impossibility to be entered into the United States as a birth registrant, because there is no birth registration in the United States. And no person shall be held liable in any court for or in respect to anything done, the doing, or omitted in good faith in connection with the administration of, or in pursuance of, or in reliance on, in the person that's on the paper. In connection with the administration of this, or in reliance on this subdivision or any rule, regulation, instruction, or direction issued hereunder. So you can literally take this and copy paste it and administrate it to the judicial office with your explanation of your judicial determination. My judicial determination is that by use of the address alone, as constructed in a 3-line format, is a contract indicator that I am the agent issuing securities at the municipal level for the street name security held by the municipality who named that street in a contract with the Postal Service as the registered agent, meaning the municipality is also another registered agent. And when you use that address, you are acting as a registered agent of that municipality. These are commercial activities known as contracts. And I urge you to quit doing so. And that is the end of the presentation for my side. What do you have, Jimmy? I'm going to go through the comment section and look for things, but let's hear what Timmy has to say.
Oh, I just good stuff as always. Regarding the address, the address, the finance address, Nancy would address on. You're saying that, you're saying that just like, or let me not say what you. I understand that if I just put brackets around the zip, does that pull it out of that situation?
You're still presumed to be an agent, but you're acting outside of the United States territory. So what you do is you use a 4-line address with brackets. And that's the care of that I use. I always use Brother Keith, : stop. And I never abbreviate anything.
Right.
Care of, : stop. Joyce, : stop. Notice it's a given name only with no last name, concurring that she's not a contracting agent either. Okay. So we dismiss the agent part by dismissing the last name. Okay. Now we apply just the given name, which is given to us by our mom and dad, which is inspired by thy name. Does that make sense?
You. Yeah.
So now you can use the address, and then when you put the zip code in brackets, you're not using the enumeration, and it is a recognition of the trust. So now instead of using 3 lines, you've got 4 lines, which is outside the administration, but within the trust, because it's a recognized trust without the enumeration, and you're recognizing it as a beneficiary.
Got you. Now, would you say that that's a better method or just a different method than just using general delivery?
I use that in all cases, whether it's at this address or general delivery. That's why I don't have a problem with general delivery. I'll go ahead and one of these days I'll be getting into the homemade stamps again and doing that and showing people how to do that. But again, it's a matter of not using envelopes and making sure that you construct it right.
Gotcha.
Okay. And that's a manifold dispatch of your private article. It does not enter the mails. It passes through the mails under the guarantee that that transit is guaranteed. Freedom of transit is guaranteed throughout the entire territory of the Union. And that's freedom. That means free dominion. And again, when I reached the point where I realized I had freedom, free dominion, it's only because I had to take on more responsibilities. And those responsibilities are learning the administration so you can execute your own yay and yay by action. And if that action happens to take writing private letters, private messages, yeah, I'll do that. I've been doing that. And it's been working pretty good. Particular things that I do with accepted for value, simply writing them back. And it's not entered into any system. It's not entered into any court. It's just plain truth, reason, and facts used in a line of logic. Since there's no mathematical equation on the paper and there's no dollar sign and there's no mention of dollars, I accept it for the zero value because no one can figure out what you're trying to imply here. And here on 2 years, not a word back, and they still accept my companion at all these different medical associations because they knew they fucked up. Now, if they want to try again, I'm going to bring in that Hippocratic Oath and ask them if they're dependent upon their emotions. If they want to cry a little bit more, I'll give them some different kind of paper. I'll give them some really soft paper called tissues, key issues, that double-sided of the ledger. Yeah, come play some fucking word games with me, people. And that's what it gets down to. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. So start bringing the Word of God, and that is the word of truth. Every word of God is pure, for it is a shield unto him who placed their faith in God. Again, faith is dead without work, so you have to work for God, not the administration.
I hear that.
So I'm done here. Unless Timmy's got anything else to say, I don't have anybody else coming up on panel. So last words?
No, thank you. As always, great stuff. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, brother. And I want to say thank you to Wobbly Boost, Eric Lieberman, Diana Sharp, Scott. Thanks for joining. Let's see if I missed anybody else here. We got our singers still down there shouting out. Top G, thanks for joining. Hope everybody enjoys it. Again, hit that like, share, and subscribe. Even though we're done at the end, get that out there. More people will view it. I see numbers rising, and I'd like to see the numbers rise in the PayPal as well. I need some new glasses and a new laptop, or get this one fixed. So please feel free to share some love through the PayPal, and God bless everybody. Remember, I love you. I really love you, and I really don't give a fuck whether you love me back or not. That's up for you to determine, and when you reach that point, you will. God bless. Have a good day, everybody.